Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest Inside the Birds TV with Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan, presented by DraftKings. The Eagles have a heck of a situation going on right now, hovering around them with Carson Wentz, whose relationship with the team is kind of icy, and he may not want to come back to the team. We'll have to see what happens going forward. We thought it would be a great time to bring back former Packers president Andrew Brandt to talk about the situation. And of course, Andrew's a local guy, executive director of the Morad Center at Villanova, does the Business of Sports podcast that you should all check out. And we've had him on the show before, and we've mentioned that he's been an advisor to Eagles GM Howie Roseman in the past. So you wear a lot of hats, Andrew. You've got a lot of knowledge and wisdom. So we are very thankful for you to come on and join us, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you guys. Good to see you again. And I'm fortunate to do a lot of sort of talk about national issues in the NFL nationally, but it seems like there's more talk about the Eagles, who are not even in the playoffs, than any other team right now, between the Wentz drama and what happened Sunday night. So you guys never lack for content talking about this team.
Correct. No, definitely not. Never lack for content, which is good for us. Good for us. So let's talk a little bit about the Carson situation. We'll start this off that. Testy relationship right now with the franchise. They just gave him a very long deal, lucrative deal. And so it's a sticky situation. As an outside observer, you see this going on, you hear what you hear. As someone who has ran a front office before, how dangerous does this sound, and how mucky does it sound?
Well, Geoff, there are two parts of it, and the two parts are the emotional kind of personality part and then the financial business part. And my expertise obviously is the second one. And where I've been vocal in writing and talking about this is, of course, the financial burden if there were a separation. And people have to understand that about NFL economics. If this was an NBA player, Major League Baseball player, you move them, you move off the salary, and that's it. But the NFL economics has a long tail, I like to say. And it's good when you want to create cap room and you want to push it out because you have these prorated bonuses, prorated signing bonus, prorated option bonus, prorated future guaranteed money, prorated future roster bonuses, all of which are in the Wentz contract, which is great. Because the Eagles created cap room when they did that deal. They didn't have to load a lot of cap to do the Wentz deal. But the chickens will come home to roost if there's a separation. Who in their right mind would have ever thought there'd be a separation with Carson Wentz? What was it, 2 years ago when they did the deal? So if we're at that point, I've made these, you know the numbers by now, but just for your audience, again, $34 million will come on the Eagles cap if they move him. And that's assuming they move him before the third day of the league year. If they have to pay the $10 million, then it's a $44 million cap hit to the Eagles. So if they're going to move him, they would take on $34 million, which would be the most massive dead money, which is really non-roster money in the history of the NFL. That's why I look at it from a financial business point of view and say, they are not going to do this. That is too big a hole in their cap, especially in a year where they're already over the cap and you've got a diminished cap because of COVID and we don't know how much it's going to go down. I just say it's cheaper to keep him. And again, purely financial business, that's my initial reaction.
So, Andrew, I was listening to your Business of Sports podcast, one of the recent ones with former Eagles president Joe Banner, and you and Joe did not agree in terms of how they could structure getting out of it. You've been steadfast, as you just said, that they just can't do it. Joe's like, wait a minute, post-June 1 designation, it's still going to be painful, it would be less painful. What do you think of what Joe said there? What is your opinion of structuring, potentially trading him and using a post-June 1 designation?
Well, the post-June 1 actually has more dead money, but it is spread over 2 years. When I just said that they'd have to pay the $10 million in March, that would be a post-June 1, obviously. If they're not really truly releasing them till June, they have to pay their roster bonus in March.
Correct.
So now it's $44 million. And as Joe described in my podcast that you heard, it would be $25 million in 2021, $19 million in 2022. people listening and you and Geoff can decide if it's better to take 44/2 or 34/1, but neither of them are good. The thing I raised with Joe, and he had a great answer, and I'm not sure I agree with him on this point, but it's worth a discussion. Number one, even though it's wink, wink for 4 months, do you really want Carson Wentz on your team in that atmosphere from March till June? Number two, does the new team want to be able to, not violating the rules, have no communication with Carson Wentz until June? And Joe pointed out that, with COVID, that's been the norm.
Yeah.
These sort of off seasons. So theoretically, especially if it's someone like the Colts who know him, theoretically that can be done. But that, again, I don't think 44/2 is any better than 34/1.
All right. I want to tell our listeners to download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use the code ITB for a special offer when you sign up. That's code ITB for a special offer when you sign up at DraftKings Sportsbook. So let me ask you this then, all right, because now you've got my mind working a little bit, Andrew. If the Eagles decide to play leverage game and say, we get you're upset, but we sign you to a contract and it's a massive hit, we're going to make you abide by the contract, we're not going to try to trade you. Now look at it from you're a GM, you're running a franchise, and you're making a disgruntled player report. We know the fines are heavy if you don't report, but either way, you're making a disgruntled player do something potentially against his will. Is that worth the financial risk of trying to win with that player now?
Yeah, I mean, now we're dealing with the second part. I mentioned the two parts to it. Listen, I know Howie and Doug very well, but I'm not aware of internal discord with the quarterback. I know there are a lot of rumors out there, a lot of leaks from who knows. But that's a situation, I go back to my situation. We drafted Aaron Rodgers when we had Brett Favre. Very different, because you have a Hall of Fame quarterback on the way out and a young player on the way in. But that required a lot of management in itself, because you had to manage a guy who's sitting with his replacement every day and manage a guy in Rodgers who's wondering every day, am I ever going to play? Now you have a different situation. You have two quarterbacks that are capable of playing and both young. So that's hard to manage, and I understand that. But I do get back to this, the obvious point, which is how many quarterbacks stay healthy all year? And you learned the other night, it's not going to be Sudfeld, right? So why not have both if, in fact, which I keep saying, it's cheaper to keep him than to not keep him? I know not from a cash standpoint, but from a cap standpoint. So I don't know the emotional side of this. And I guess my other point to you, Geoff, is we're in January, or we're in December, we're January. Whatever issues are gone, can they be different in March? Can they be different in April and May?
Good question.
You would hope, with honest and open communication, you would hope.
Andrew, looking at the Eagles situation here, and you've been through this as a former executive with the Packers, and don't forget, people might remember Andrew actually worked for the Eagles, in 2009, I believe? Jeremy Maclin was the first round pick?
I helped with Joe Banner with the cap stuff in 2010.
Yeah. So you've been around the Eagles, and you're well aware because you live in Philly. This is an older team now. They need to start flipping the roster a little bit.
Right.
Bring us inside when you're trying to do contracts and what these conversations are like as a former executive with two teams. When you're trying to get younger and trying to walk away from players, and Howie Roseman's talked about this. He's admitted, he goes, that's one thing he's had trouble doing. What are these conversations like when you know you got to get younger?
Yeah, it's just kind of, you start out the way you said it. You have to explain your philosophy, and my gateway and his gateway is really not the players. I know in some cases it's going to be the players, but it's the agents. And the relationships with agents is so important now, to really have them present what you're saying in a more friendly way because they're on their side. It's tough for the team to present it in the right way without the agent, because you got to get everyone on board. And this goes to the Wentz situation too. I don't know the relationship now between Howie and the Tollner brothers. But that would seem to be very important for this offseason, and how they relate, how they deal with the Carson situation. And again, when you talk about other older players, Adam, one of the reasons I also say I don't think they're going to get rid of Wentz is because they didn't get rid of Alshon Jeffrey. And the reason they didn't get rid of Alshon Jeffrey has nothing to do with Alshon Jeffrey's talent to be on the team, in my opinion. Has all to do with his cap. He was cheaper to keep than cut. And now they'll get rid of him. But they kept him an extra year because of the exact reason I'm saying they're going to keep Wentz. Now, again, we don't know the whole story there.
So it stands to reason, right, Andrew? Because already fans are kind of trying to do second level thinking. They see a potentially unhappy Deshaun Watson in Houston, and they're thinking if a trade could happen, or if the Eagles can trade one disgruntled guy for another. But I would think that if you're taking that massive cap hit, then you have to move on to a quarterback who's got a lower cap hit, like a rookie. So, I mean, if they're not going to move forward with Carson Wentz, it can't be another high-priced veteran, I would think, right?
No. I mean, it hurts. Obviously, it hurts. And when you guys know this better than I do, what I heard about the Hurts pick was two things. Number one, couldn't believe he was there. He's not going to be there in the third round. Got to jump. And number two, who better to be a backup quarterback for a $30 million quarterback than a $2 million quarterback? Mm-hmm. So no more Josh McCown's making $10 million. No more Nick Foles making $20 million. We're getting a cheap quarterback. And that's where we are. Now, if in your scenario, the cheap quarterback becomes the starter, that's great for a normal team, like Russell Wilson when he was coming up, like Dak Prescott when he was coming up. But they got a much bigger problem. Whether he's there or not, they have the highest paid backup in the history of the sport.
Andrew, why don't we see more teams when they do contracts do it like Tampa Bay does, where there's no signing bonus? That way there's guaranteed base salaries. There's no proration if you have to cut the player. There's obviously, if it's fully guaranteed money, you're going to get some dead money in the cap, but you don't have to worry about those dummy years or restructures and pushing the cap down the road. Why don't we see more teams do that?
I don't know, Adam, you're talking my language now, because at the Packers, I always told our general manager, like, we're gonna pay as we go. When I did Charles Woodson, when I did Brett, it's like, let's load as much as we can right now in case there's a separation, because we don't want to be stuck with this. Listen, I know Howie and Joe always liked exactly what we're talking about, but they got behind it. Right, Adam? I don't know how they did, but they did. They did a lot of veteran extensions with Cox, with Ertz, with Johnson, and they got behind the cap. Obviously, you want to be in the place where you're talking about. And in my podcast, I talk about the difference. Not you were talking about Tampa Bay. I was talking about San Francisco. Jimmy Garoppolo's first year cash is like 40 million. Jimmy Garoppolo's first year cap number is 37 million. Which is great. Kudos to the 49ers. They had the cap, which is the hard part, and then they loaded it. So here, listen to this. If they move on from Jimmy Garoppolo, their dead cap is
$2.5 million.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I looked it up. Yeah.
$2.5 million compared to.
So that's the thing. Why don't more teams do that? I don't understand why they just take the hit early.
The cap room to do it. And Jacksonville's another one. They have too much cap room, but Cleveland, Jacksonville, Tampa, Minnesota's done it. I mean, it's just, I don't know why you don't do more of it, because this is the player, as I said at the start, where you're thinking, well, we'll never separate from him until all the dead money's gone. And look where we are.
On that note too, Andrew, it seemed like a lot of the free agent deals that were signed last year, certainly the Eagles did it with Javon Hargrave, were only 3-year deals. You didn't see a lot of longer term deals in free agency that you normally did. What was the rationale behind that, you think?
I don't know. I mean, as we know, the guarantee only lasts 1 or 2 years. So maybe agents are getting smarter. And I say that because they realize these are dummy years at the end of the deals. Teams want to spread out the cap. But you're right. Deals seem to be getting shorter in all sports, especially football. And I think you know, also teams are looking at this diminished cap in 2021, which we haven't even talked about because of COVID and lack of game day revenues. Could be some ugly stuff this February.
So you do see a bloodletting around the league. You do believe that it could be a little bit worse than normal with veteran cuts?
I do, Adam, but I don't think it's going to go down the Armageddon number of 175, because what I think the union is definitely wanting to do, and I think the league will allow it, is borrow from the future. So we're going to have huge increases in the future because of the new media. That'll probably be 2022 on. So the union's saying, all right, only take us down 5 million and we'll borrow the 5 million from 2024, and I think that'll happen.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I think that'll happen.
Just switch gears a little bit. I've talked about this on the last podcast, and I just wanted your opinion on it. It doesn't even have to be relative to the Eagles, but in general, I'm bringing it into an Eagles viewpoint because they've been doing a lot of, coaches in, coaches out, coaches in, coaches out the last few years. And I'm wondering if you think that can hurt a franchise's reputation at times. If you're a good on the rise coach, is that something that you notice that you've got a couple of teams bidding for you and one franchise is kind of known for each year they're shuffling guys in and out? Does that become problematic for a franchise? Could it be?
I think so. It could. I mean, I was fortunate in Green Bay. We had a ton of continuity. And that's helped us over the years. It definitely helped. Yeah, I think the problem with coaching and turnover is there's people always going to look for backstories. What's the problem here? Who's hard to get along with? Are there fights between personnel and coaching, which is always the concern? Mm-hmm. Personnel thinks they don't have the great coaching. Coaching thinks they don't have the players they need. Listen, I've always heard about Howie and Doug, they're on the same page. But you just have to sort of, turnover is not good in any organization, a lot of it. People are going to look at the reasons why. I think that's natural.
Andrew, I got to ask you about Rodgers and Favre, in that, if I've heard you describe this before, but take us inside. Once Rodgers there at 25, and you knowing that, I know you're on the contract side, but as an executive and a guy's around football all the time, then how did Brett deal with this? Because I'm thinking when Carson Wentz, now the Eagles told him they were going to draft Hurts in the second round, so it wasn't like it was a surprise to him, but still, you draft a guy in the second round, that's usually a starter. So how did Brett handle it from what you would call in 2005?
Well, I've told the draft room story many times. I'm not going to get into it other than the exact moment after it. He called the coach and his agent Bus called me. And in so many words, it was WTF, right? Like, WTF. And that started along conversations that lasted over months and days and weeks and months about, at some point, we've taken all these quarterbacks in the past. The Packers are known for taking all these quarterbacks. We took Aaron Brooks. We took Matt Hasselbeck, my client, before I became a team guy. And it was always really to trade them. We always took them. Basically, we were going to trade them because, they were never going to play. But at age 36, we're like, come on. And then we told Brett and Bus the same story I've told 1,000 times, which is, we have all the first rounders on the board and they're all gone. What do you, except
what are you gonna do? Right.
Yeah. So we're not going to dip into our second round grades just to take a defensive player. So yeah, I mean, I've talked about the managing of it, and I did earlier in our talk here about, Bus would ask me this question. Do you know what it's like to come into work every day and sit next to your replacement? It's not fun. And I heard Ryan Fitzpatrick say the same thing when he was benched. And I heard, I just heard rumors about that with Brady and Garoppolo. It's not a good thing, but you got to manage it. And of course, Aaron's camp is asking, when is he going to play? And you don't have an answer for that either. So yeah, I learned a lot in those 3 years.
Well, kudos to you for sticking to your board. Adam and I talk a lot about that. And kudos to the Packers. I'm pretty sure if you ask them, they don't regret the decision, and they're happy to move on from one Hall of Famer to onto another. So that's a great story. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. I think your perspective on this situation was very valuable for our viewers, and we hope you come back and join us again down the road sometime, as you have already.
Yeah, I always enjoyed it. And again, Adam mentioned the podcast, Business of Sports, and now I'm doing a newsletter. So delivered.
How do they sign up?
Delivered to your email every Sunday morning. Just go to andrew-brandt.com, andrew-brandt.com, and register your email. I'll get it to you every Sunday.
Excellent. And again, listen to the Business of Sports podcast. Fantastic podcast that Andrew Brandt does. All right, Andrew, we'll catch up with you down the road. Thanks again, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. This is another episode of Inside the Birds TV. We'll catch you on the next one.